Julius Caesar. I guess we'll see whether or not Caesar is a tragedy or history according to, because Shakespeare will say things like the historical tragedy of. So what do you group it in? Clearly I passed the thing. Let's see. Okay, here we go. We got contents here. Okay. So it's not a history, it is a tragedy then. Yeah. The tragedy of Julius Caesar. Okay. So I guess I was just delusional. And it doesn't say history. I was thinking of Hamlet, the tragical history of Hamlet. So Julius Caesar is just a tragedy. I don't even know what page it is. Lord help me. 1295. All the way in the back. And if you are not familiar with Shakespeare and his works, don't worry. You don't have to be. I will explain things along the way. And if the Shakespearean language is maybe off-putting, totally understand. Half of the time, I can't even understand it. So you don't have to worry about somebody being pretentious with you, because I will stumble over words and I will edit them out half of the time. And I will glaze over significant points of foreshadowing or symbolism. And that is okay too. You read it, and you read it again, and you keep reading it until you figure out more of the little things you might have missed the first time. That is what is good about reading and works of literature and works of fiction especially. Alright. Now, to be completely truthful with you, I don't actually know very much at all about the real life of Julius Caesar. I left all of that in high school history, but we will go on Shakespeare's rendition of him. Just to begin to talk a little bit about this piece, I may need a refresher, just because I have not gone through it since a little over a year now. Julius Caesar has a lot to do, or the tragedy of Julius Caesar has a lot to do with the power of rhetoric, the power of, I guess, the people, and the idea that, truthfully, that people can easily be sheep to those that are ruling above them, and they're very fickle. So, before Julius was ruling, before Julius took over, I believe they're called plebeians in here, which are the people, yeah, they were cheering on their former ruler, supporting him, you know, screaming his name, holding statues of him. But as soon as Julius took over and that power was transferred, they lost all their loyalty to the ruler who had been overthrown by Julius, and they became in awe of him. They worshipped him like a god, like he had statues all over, you know, they cheered for him. And this is acknowledged when two streets people are talking, and they're discussing how everyone is hypocritical because they switched so easily and so quickly, and they don't have any true grounding in the people they follow. But this is, I believe, overheard, and the two men are essentially gotten rid of. And so I apologize if you can see, you can see the reflection of both my phone and the candle. I apologize. And that just sort of goes to show how much power Julius Caesar had in his position, and how much influence he had over everybody around him. But that level of power would be something that could easily get to his head. Not necessarily in terms of being, I guess, selfish, but in the sense of his safety, in what he felt maybe made him invincible in some way, would be a downfall, as we will see foreshadowed many, many times in the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Many times is he given the chance to not go to, I believe it's the Senate, but yeah, he's given many, many opportunities to not go to meet, not go to wherever it is that he is, I forget, because that is where the conspiracy of Brutus and Antony, if I'm correct, we'll see, I guess, and all of the other senators conspire to stab and kill Julius Caesar. But Brutus is lumped in, and I believe Brutus is swayed very easily by the power of rhetoric. When I say that, that's just a really, really, I guess, pretentious. It's a really extra way of just saying the power of your words and the way that you choose to order them and how you can use it for persuasion. That's what I mean by that's the theme, the power of rhetoric there. You know, to sway the masses, really. So here is an example of the fickle nature of the plebeians and the people, and how they blindly follow their leaders. So there is an example as they talk about being conspirators, and they simply look for who was a conspirator against Caesar. Yes, who was a conspirator against Caesar. You guys, I'm forgetting everything. Is that how it goes? I think the conspirators who killed, yes, the conspirators who killed Julius Caesar, everyone at first agrees with them, but then someone who was loyal to Julius Caesar comes forward and speaks. That is correct. And then the people are fickle once more, and instead of believing that the killing of Caesar was justified, they then go out for blood and want to kill the people who killed Julius Caesar. So they go back and forth. And so, in an effort to kill, this is all technically spoilers, but we're not going to get through all of Julius Caesar here. So I'd like to explain it to you so that you understand the ending and what you'll be leading up to, as if you were rereading and analyzing this, as if you've already read this. So that way, when we see these moments of foreshadow, is no matter. His name's Cinna. Pluck but his name out of his heart, and turn him going. So because of his name, he is a conspirator. He's not, but he is, because they've said so. And that's what leads to chaos and disorder in this piece. So much chaos and disorder. Oh, I got them reversed. Okay, you guys. Edit. It is Brutus and Cassius. Cassius is the main conspirator. Cassius convinces Brutus that Julius Caesar must die. Why? Because Cassius, technically, if you're analyzing it, because it's not necessarily like proven in here, but it can be inferred that Cassius is jealous of his ranking compared to Julius Caesar. Cassius is, sort of like a right-hand man to Caesar. Like he's there, he's with him, but he's not at the top, right? Brutus, also very loyal to Caesar, but he's very fickle. He's easily swayed by Cassius, and Cassius is the one to do the swaying. Cassius is the one that leads everything. He will slowly tell white lies to Brutus to make Brutus believe that he is killing Julius Caesar, maybe for his own good, as to not bring the people into a dictatorship, something dangerous for the people. But Mark Antony is the loyal follower all the way through of Julius Caesar, and he does not participate in the killing of Julius Caesar, but rather he tries to make a deal, and he does, with Cassius, that he would not, I believe it was, he wouldn't take any action against the conspirators, but he wanted to be able to speak at the funeral of Julius Caesar. And that is going to be a major pivotal point in the play, because Cassius must realize that he needs to speak before Antony speaks. Why? Because he believes that he must rationalize to the people, to the plebeians, to the masses. He must rationalize why the senators and himself killed Julius Caesar. Because keep in mind, the plebeians have no idea yet why this has happened, why their leader has been murdered. And so, I don't know if it's Brutus or Cassius that will go before the people, but it is their goal to speak first, so that they can refute anything that Mark Antony says afterwards. But they speak, they say their piece, and then Mark Antony comes on, and he does his thing. And what Antony does is he speaks about how, another core theme in this piece, virtue and honor. Mark Antony will speak heavily about how Julius Caesar was a virtuous man. He was an honorable man. And he will bring in the sort of juxtaposition of how Cassius and Brutus are trying to talk about being virtuous by doing this murder. Yet they're doing a murder, and they didn't seek out any other way to keep Caesar from becoming overbearing in his power. So they were not rational, and Antony hits on this. That's there's a weak point there, that they just immediately went to death has a strong way with words to exclaim that Caesar was not deserving such an end, and that Caesar was a good friend to him and a good leader. And it's just very heavy on that power of rhetoric and speech, and of how you choose your words. So, wow, I forgot that this is a really good piece, honestly. I enjoyed this. And I do believe that Caesar comes back as a ghost, which could be explained away as some sort of psychological phenomenon for Cassius and Brutus. I forget who actually sees him, but they see him appear as an apparition, and they do die in the end. Cassius and Brutus, they die. So yes. Oh, so it's called spin control today. What Brutus was doing by speaking before Antony, he wanted to ensure that he got hold of the situation. Like, whoever listens, I'm the one setting the scene. So whatever Mark Antony says after me, don't take it as heavily as you have taken my point, because I've already explained everything. But Antony is also heavy on humility, so he doesn't appoint any of the audience's gaze onto himself. He wants just everybody to see that Caesar, his physical body, is there. It is dead. He was a leader, and now he has been murdered. He really gets down to the basic. Like, this is it. You see this person that you held so highly, and now this group of people have come and killed him. And what do we have now? Oh, and the speech. Antony's speech. He highlights how Brutus, in the speech, Brutus always says, "But I am an honorable man. I am an honorable man." And everything Brutus highlights how he is a virtuous man. That's what I was getting at with virtue. Brutus believes he is a good person. He is honorable. But what makes you honorable? Is that defensible? Is that the reason that he thinks his murder was justified? Is that what he's trying to justify to himself? That he is an honorable man? Antony uses that against Brutus by repeating it. He uses that repetition and slams in the irony of it. So for Antony to say, well, here lies Julius Caesar dead, but of course, sure, Brutus was an honorable man. Here lies Julius Caesar, who kept Brutus as his right-hand man, but sure, Brutus, he was honorable, sure. And there's a lot of, he doesn't say it in a sarcastic way, but it certainly will feel like it when you read it, because it's like, wow, yeah. And so each time the term honor is repeated, it loses its pull, and it loses its significance and its power that honor might have over the people. They then realize it's a word, and it has no standing in the justification of this murder. Is honor really honor if you just use it and throw it so that people will believe you? It's good. I enjoy talking about this. Can you tell? Can you tell? There are many, many characters in this one. reading Shakespeare. This is why I'm going to title it not literally a reading of Shakespeare, but whispers of Shakespeare. As I read, I will discuss what is going on, but we will start from the beginning in Act 1, Scene 1 of the tragedy of Julius Caesar. Now enter Flavius, Morellus, and certain commoners over the stage. That is the directions. So, Flavius, excuse me, Flavius. And this happens in Rome, to give you the setting. So, Flavius says, "Hence, home, you idle creatures, get you home. Is this a holiday? What know you not? Being mechanical, you ought not walk upon a laboring day without the sign of your profession." And to one of the commoners, "Speak, what trade art thou?" And the commoner says, "Why, sir, a carpenter." Morellus says, "Where is thy leather apron and thy rule? What dost thou with thy best apparel on?" And to another one of the commoners, "You, sir, what trade are you?" He says, "Truly, sir, in respect of a fine workman, I am but, as you would say, a cobbler." Morellus says, "But what trade art thou? Answer me directly." The cobbler says, "A trade, sir, that I hope I may use with a safe conscience, which is indeed, sir, a mender of bad souls." Now what's happening here is there is currently a parade going on to celebrate Julius Caesar's triumph as a leader. And so commoners, people are celebrating him. And Flavius and Morellus are not happy about this because they're the ones I explained in the beginning where they're saying these people are fickle. Why are they celebrating this? They were just celebrating the other leader. So Flavius says, "What trade, thou knave, thou naughty knave, what trade?" The cobbler says, "Nay, I beseech you, sir, be not out with me, yet if you be out, sir, I can mend you." Morellus, "What meanest thou by that? Mend me, thou saucy fellow." I have never heard that before. Also, there's a lot of sexual innuendos in here, actually. For whatever reason, I don't know. There's actually theories that this piece has to do with, I forget which characters it is. Maybe it's Julius Caesar and Brutus being in love with each other. I don't know. It's not like true, but people just say it. Okay. "Why, sir, cobble you? Thou art a cobbler, art thou?" "Truly, sir, all that I live by is with thee all. I meddle with no tradesman matters, nor woman's matter, but withal I am indeed, sir, a surgeon to old shoes. When they are in great danger I recover them, as proper men as ever trod upon neat's leather have gone upon my handiwork." And Flavius, "What wherefore out? But wherefore art not in thy shop today? Why dost thou lead these men about the streets?" The cobbler responds, "Truly, sir, to wear out their shoes to get myself into more work. But indeed, sir, we make holiday to see Caesar and to rejoice in his triumph." And Morellus says, "Wherefore rejoice? What conquest brings he home? What tributaries follow him to Rome, to grace in captive bonds his chariot wheels? You blocks, you stones, you worse than senseless things. Oh, you hard hearts, you cruel men of Rome, knew you not Pompey?" Pompey was the previous leader. That's what that was. "Many a time and oft have you climbed up to walls and battlements, to saw his chariot but appear, have you not made an universal shout? That timber trembled underneath our banks to hear the replication of your sounds made in our concave shores. And do you now put on your best attire? And do you now call out a holiday? And do you now strew flowers in his way that comes in triumph over Pompey's blood? Be gone, run to your houses, fall upon your knees, pray to the gods to intermit the plague that needs must light on this ingratitude. So clearly, he is not happy that people are praising Julius. He sees the hypocrisy of the people simply choosing the one that has won. Flavius responds, Go, go, good countrymen, for this fault. Assemble all the poor men of your sort, draw them to timber banks, and weep your tears into the channel till the lowest stream do kiss the most exalted shores of all. See where their basest middle be not moved, they vanish tongue-tied in their guiltiness. Go you down the way towards the capital. This way will I disrobe the images if you do find them decked with ceremonies. And when they say disrobe the images, they are talking about the decor of Julius Caesar. So they are discussing about sort of defacing the celebration of Julius. And Morellus responds, May we do so. You know it is the feast of Lupercal, I don't know. Flavius says, It is no matter, let no images be hung with Caesar's trophies, all about and drive away the vulgar from the streets, and so do you do where you perceive them thick. These growing feathers plucked from Caesar's wing will make him fly an ordinary pitch. Who else would soar above the view of men and keep us all in servile fearfulness? And that is the end of Act 1, Scene 1. Now we get into Scene 2. And again, it is still a party-esque scene. But now we get Caesar. Calpurnia is, I believe, Caesar's wife here. And the unfortunate reality is that Calpurnia will be one of the many people to give light to the foreshadow of Caesar's death. Calpurnia later on has a dream that Caesar will die and be killed. Or I don't remember if she dreams him being killed, but she dreams him being dead. And it's at the Senate, so she warns him not to go. But he goes anyways. And so that is one of many ways that he ignores the signs of his death. But then that also plays into the idea of, well, is it fate or is it choice? Which, doesn't have an answer when you're getting into literature. It's up to you to think about and to analyze. But it's like, even though he had so many signs, could he really have avoided something if it was meant to happen? So that's interesting. Something to chew on. But Caesar says Calpurnia and Casca, who later on we'll find to be is one of the conspirators. Casca says, Peace, ho, Caesar speaks, and the music calms. Caesar again says, Calpurnia, and Calpurnia says, Hear, my lord. Caesar says, Stand you directly in Antonio's way, when he doth run his course, Antonio. Antony says, Caesar, my lord. And Caesar says, Forget not in your speed, Antonio, to touch Calpurnia, for our elders say the baron says, "Do this, it is performed." Caesar says, "Sit on and leave no ceremony out." And so music starts again. And a soothsayer says, "Oh, this is one of the moments of foreshadow." A soothsayer is, I believe, someone who can, they're perceived as crazy, but they're people that can tell the future. Essentially, they give you signs. They talk about prophecies, I think. I could be wrong, but that's what is happening. So the soothsayer yells, "Caesar." Caesar says, "Ha, who calls?" And Casca says, "Bid every noise be still, peace yet again." Everything calms again, the music stops, the ceremony stops. Caesar says, "Who is it in the press that calls on me? I hear a tongue shriller than all the music cry, Caesar. Speak, Caesar is turned to hear." The soothsayer says, "Beware the Ides of March." Caesar says, "What man is that?" And Brutus responds, "A soothsayer bids you beware the Ides of March." Now I forget. The Ides of March is a date in March. I can't remember what date exactly though. I think it has to do maybe with the 8 or 9. Possibly. I can't remember. And Caesar says, "Set him before me, let me see his face." Cassius responds, "Fellow, come from the throng, look upon Caesar." And the soothsayer comes forward. Caesar says, "What sayest thou to me now? Speak once again." And the soothsayer says, "Beware the Ides of March." Caesar says, "He is a dreamer. Let us leave him pass." And so he ignores it, and everybody leaves except for Brutus and Cassius. This is the very important conversation that will take place and sort of drive the course of Cassius's power over Brutus and his ability to persuade him or deceive him. It's up to you. I won't necessarily tell you my thoughts, but I'll tell you. What am I saying? I talk a lot. It's thought that there's kind of a debate between, is Brutus really at fault for killing Caesar? Because when you know the whole story, you understand there's this side of, well, Brutus is innocent or he's not innocent. People believe that Brutus was deceived. He was looking out for the people of Rome. He didn't want them to be led into a strict government, a strict dictator, somebody that would be too powerful. And so he realized if they didn't stop Caesar, then everything would fall apart in Rome. And so that's what Cassius was explaining to him, and so that's why he justified killing Caesar. But on the other side, it is that Brutus is still guilty, and what I believe may be controversial. I believe that I do think Brutus has regret for the fact that he killed Caesar, or he had a hand in it. But I absolutely believe Brutus is at fault, and he cannot blame it simply on the deception of Cassius, because time and time again, Brutus was convincing himself over the course of this story that his honor was what protected him, that his virtue and his status as this honorable man was what redeemed him. And so the choices that he made were all was for the better. But it was like he deceived himself in the process. And it's like you made a bad choice, man. You made a bad choice. Cassius continues on his rant. So now Cassius and Brutus are alone. Cassius says, "Will you go see the order of the course?" And Brutus says, "Not I." Cassius says, "I pray you do." And Brutus responds, "I am not gamesome. I do lack some part of that quick spirit that is in Antony. Let me not hinder, Cassius, your desires. I'll leave you." And Cassius says, "Brutus, I do deserve of you now of late. I have not from your eyes that gentleness and show of love as I wont to have. You bear too stubborn and too strange a hand over your friend that loves you." Brutus says, "Cassius, be not deceived. If I have veiled my look, I turn the trouble of my countenance merely upon myself. Vexed I am of late with passions of some difference, conceptions only proper to myself, which give some soil, perhaps, to my behaviors. But let not therefore my good friend be grieved, among which number, Cassius, be you one, nor construe any further my neglect than that poor Brutus, which with himself at war forgets the shows of love to another man, or to other men, excuse me." When Cassius says that, he was just saying that you're being too stubborn and too rude to me. Cassius is saying you're being rude to me, and I love you because I'm your friend. But what's going on here? And it's really important, the line 41, where he says, line 41, 42, "Merely upon myself vexed I am of late with passions of some difference." This is the jumping point for Cassius, because Cassius now has that insight into Brutus's mind that, oh, Brutus is thinking about something and he's struggling between some choices. Brutus here is thinking about Caesar. He is thinking about maybe the trouble that Caesar could bring in his leadership. And Cassius is going to use that because he knows, well, if he isn't fully on Caesar's side and he's just thinking about what's going on, I'm going to use that and I'm going to work with it. So Cassius responds, "Then, Brutus, I have mistook your passion, by means whereof this breast of mine hath buried thoughts of great value, worthy cogitations, I don't know, let me be real with you." He says, "Tell me, good Brutus, can you see your face?" Brutus says, "No, Cassius, for the eye sees not itself, but by reflection, by some other things." And here's where Cassius starts to butter him up, okay? Yep. "'Tis just, and it is very lamented, Brutus, that you have no such mirrors as will turn your hidden worthiness into your eye, that you might see your shadow. I have heard were many of the best respect in Rome, except immortal Caesar, speaking of Brutus, and groaning underneath this age's yoke, have wished that noble Brutus had his eyes." And it's interesting that he uses that little jab, immortal Caesar, because Cassius is jealous and he recognizes that Caesar is seen as, godlike by the people. Brutus responds, "Into what dangers would you lead me, Cassius, that you would have me seek into myself for that which is not in me?" Cassius says, "Therefore, good Brutus, be prepared to hear, and since you know you cannot see yourself so well as by reflection, I, your glass, will modestly discover to yourself that of yourself which you yet know not of, and be not jealous on me, gentle Brutus. Were I a common laughter, or did use to steal with Brutus says, "Oh, there's something, people shouting in the crowd that they can hear because they're alone right now." Brutus says, "What means this shouting? I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king." So at this point, Caesar is not yet king, technically, but he is ruled over Pompey, so he's won against Pompey, so technically he's in the position to be the leader. And so people are choosing their leader. They're gonna choose Caesar. And Brutus says, "I do fear the people choose Caesar for their king." So he's at odds with the idea that Caesar could become king. And Cassius says, "Do you fear it? Then must I think you would not have it so." This is where he's kind of prying, like, so you don't really want him to be king. Brutus says, "I would not, Cassius, yet I love him well. But wherefore do you hold me here so long? What is it that you would impart to me, if it ought toward the general good?" That's the important part, the general good, that Brutus says he always tries to work for the general good. But that, I think, is a very fatal flaw, because he uses that blindly and chases that as if that's what he's working towards and doesn't actually look at his actions. And Brutus continues, "Set honor in one eye and death in the other, and I will look on both indifferently, for let the gods so speed me as I love the name of honor more than I fear death." I love the name of honor more than I fear death. Again, fatal for Brutus to love honor more than he fears death. Interesting. Cassius responds, "I know that virtue to be in you, Brutus," so buttering him up, calling him the honorable man, "as well as I do know your outward favor. Well, honor is the subject of my story. I cannot tell what you and other men think of this life, but for my single self, I had as life not be, and live to be, in awe of such a thing as myself. I was born free as Caesar, so were you. We both have fed as well, and we can both endure the winter's cold as well as he. For once upon a raw and gusty day, the troubled Tiber, chafing with her shores, said Caesar to me, 'Darst thou, Cassius, now leap in with me into this angry flood, and swim to yonder point?' Upon the word, a cowtrid, as I plunged in, and bade him follow. So indeed he did. The torrent roared, and we did buffet it with lusty sinews, throwing it aside, and stemming it with hearts of controversy. But ere we could arrive at the point proposed, Caesar cried, 'Help me, Cassius, or I sink.' And that's a jab from Cassius at Caesar, saying, he's not all that. He called to me for help. And he says, I, as Aeneas, our great ancestor, did from the flames of Troy upon his shoulder the old Anchises and Anchises. See, there's words in here that I don't know, you guys. I really don't. I'm not gonna pretend I do. So from the waves of Tiber did I, the tired Caesar, and this man is now become a god. See? And Cassius is a wretched creature, and must bend his body, if Caesar carelessly but not on him. He had a fever when he was in Spain, and when the fit was on him, I did mark, how did he shake? 'Tis true, this god did shake, his coward lips did from their colour fly, and that same eye, whose bend doth awe the world, was basically Cassius's rant on Caesar is not all that. He is not a god. There's all these instances where I've met him and he's been sick and he's cried out for help and he's done these things. I am no less deserving than him of this high position, of this praise from the people. And he's getting it into Brutus's head that he's really not that special. Brutus responds, another general shout, because there's people still shouting from within. He says, I do believe that these applauses are for some new honors that are heaped on Caesar. And Cassius responds, why, man, he doth bestride the narrow world like a colossus, and we petty men walk under his huge legs and peep about to find ourselves dishonorable graves. Men at some time were masters of their fates. The fault, dear Brutus, is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. I like that. So Cassius himself says, the fault is not in our stars, but in ourselves, that we are underlings. So to me, it still stands that the fault is in Brutus. And then that also plays with the idea that is it fate or is it not that Caesar died? So Cassius is saying here that it's not fate. We drive ourselves, we drive our actions. And so that goes to say, well, did Caesar really not listen? Did he drive himself to death then? Wow. Okay. Keep going. I'm gonna read this here. And he continues with, why should that name, referencing Caesar, be sounded more than yours? Write them together. Yours is as fair a name. Sound them. It doth become the mouth as well. Weigh them. It is as heavy. Conjure with them. Brutus will start a spirit as soon as Caesar. Now in the names of all the gods at once, upon what meat doth this our Caesar feed, that he is grown so great? Age, thou art shamed. Rome, thou hast lost the breed of noble bloods, when went there by an age since the great flood, but it was famed with more than with one man. When could they say till now that talked of Rome, that her wide walls encompassed but one man? Now it is Rome indeed, and room enough, when there is in it but only one man. So, only one ruler, being Caesar. Oh, you and I have heard our father say, there was a Brutus once that would have brooked the eternal devil to keep his state in Rome as easily as a king. And Brutus responds here, that you do love me, I am nothing jealous. What you would work me to, I have some aim. How I have thought of this and of these times I shall recount hereafter. For this present I would not, so with love I might entreat you. Be any further moved, what you have said I will consider. What you have to say I will with patience hear, and find such a time both meet to hear and answer such high things. Till then, my noble friend, chew upon this. Brutus had rather be a villager than to repute himself a son of Rome, under these hard conditions as this time is like to lay upon us. And Cassius says, I am glad that my weak words have struck but thus much show of fire from Brutus. And at this point, Caesar and the people are now entering. Brutus says the games are done and Caesar is returning. And Cassius Cassius says, as they pass by, pluck Casca by the sleeve, and he will, after his sour fashion, tell you what hath proceeded worthy note today. Brutus says, I will do so, but look you, Cassius, the angry spot doth glow on Caesar's brow, and all the rest look like a chidden train. I don't know. Calpurnia's cheek is pale, and Cicero looks with such ferret and such fiery eyes, as we have seen him in the Capitol being crossed in conference by some senators. Cassius says, Casca will tell us what the matter is. And Caesar says, Antonio. Antony is Antonio, by the way. Antony responds, Caesar. And Caesar says, let me have men about me that are fat, sleek-headed men, and such as sleep o' nights. Yon Cassius has a lean and hungry look. He thinks too much. Such men are dangerous. That right there, Caesar is saying, the people around him, aka Cassius, seem to be a little suspicious. They seem to be talking and thinking too much, and in a way that could negatively affect Caesar. So he knows that even though he is powerful, his circle may be dangerous. And Antony tells him, fear him not, Caesar. He's not dangerous. He's a noble Roman and well given. And Caesar says, would he were fatter, but I fear him not. Yet, if my name were liable to fear, I do not know the man I should avoid. So soon as that spare Cassius, he reads much, he is a great observer, and he looks quite through the deeds of men. He loves no plays. As thou dost, Antony, he hears no music. Seldom he smiles, and smiles in such a sort as if he mocked himself and scorned his spirit that could be moved to smile at anything. Such men as he be never at heart's ease, while they behold a greater than themselves, and therefore they are dangerous. I rather tell thee what is to be feared than what I fear, for always I am Caesar. Come on my right hand, for this ear is deaf, and tell me truly what thou thinkst of him. So, again, foreshadowing, Caesar is aware something is off about Cassius. He can feel it, he can tell. And he's right to feel that. Okay, now, next, Casca says to Brutus, you pulled me by the cloak, would you speak with me? Brutus says, I, Casca, tell us what hath chanced today, that Caesar looked so sad. Casca says, why, you were with him, were you not? And Brutus responds, I should not then ask Casca what had chanced. And Casca says, why, there was a crown offered him, and being offered him, he put it by with the back of his hand, like he said no. He said no to the crown. And then the people fell a-shouting. And so Brutus says, well, what was the second noise for? And Casca says, why, for that too. They shouted thrice. What was the last cry for? Why, for that too. Was the crown offered him thrice? Brutus responds. And Casca says, aye, marry was't. And he put it by thrice, every time gentler than other, and at every putting by, mine honest neighbors shouted. And Cassius says, who offered him the crown? And Casca responds, why, Antony. And Brutus says, tell us the manner of it, gentle Casca. And so they're talking about how Caesar was trying to display humility and deny the crown 3 times. He denied it each time it was offered to him, and all the people were, fawning over him, like, oh my goodness, he's such a leader. He doesn't want to take on the crown. He doesn't want to be seen as this god, but that made them like him even more. And I'm sure he was aware of what he was doing. Casca says, I can as well be hanged as tell the manner of it. It was mere foolery Mark Antony offer him a crown, yet 'twas not a crown either. 'Twas one of these coronets, and as I told you, he put by once. But for all that, to my thinking, he would fain have had it. Then he offered it to him again, then he put it by again, but to my thinking he was very loath to lay his fingers off it. So he's saying, each time he denied it, he could see through it that Caesar really wanted it, but he said no. And then he offered it the third time, he put it the third time by, and still as he refused it, the rabblemen hooted and clapped their chapped hands, and threw up their sweaty nightcaps and uttered such a deal of stinking breath because Caesar refused the crown that it had almost choked Caesar, for he swooned and fell down at it, and for mine own part I durst not laugh for fear of opening my lips and receiving the bad air. So clearly Casca is not for Caesar, and Cassius says, but soft, I pray you, what did Caesar swoon? Casca responds, he fell down in the marketplace, and foamed at mouth, and was speechless. And Brutus says, 'tis very like he hath the falling sickness. And Cassius says, no, Caesar hath it not, but you and I, and honest Casca, we have the falling sickness. I'm pretty sure this refers to having seizures. I don't know that it really has any significance, but it plays in like the way that other characters have empathy for him. Like, oh, poor Caesar, he's got the falling sickness, he has seizures. And Casca says, I know what you mean, but I know not what you mean by that, but I am sure Caesar fell down, if the Tagrag people did not clap him and hiss him according as he pleased and displeased them, as they used to do the players in the theater. I am no true man. And Brutus responds, what said he when he came unto himself? Casca says, Mary, before he fell down, when he perceived the common herd was glad he refused the crown, he plucked me ope his doublet and offered them his throat to cut. And I had been a man of any occupation, if I would not have taken him at word, I would I might go to hell among the rogues. And so he fell. When he came to himself again, he said, if he had done or said anything amiss, he desired their worships to think it was his infirmity. 3 or 4 wenches where I stood cried, alas, good soul, and forgave him with all their hearts, but there no heed to be taken of them. If Caesar had stabbed their mothers, they would have done no less. So, dogging on Caesar again. Brutus says, and after that, he came thus sad away. And Casca says, aye. Cassius says, did Cicero say anything? And Casca says, aye, he spoke Greek. And Cassius says, to what effect? Casca, nigh. And I tell you that I'll ne'er look you eye the face again. But those that understood him smiled at one another and shook their heads. But for mine own part, it was Greek to me. I could tell you more news too. Marillus and Flavius, for pulling scarves off Caesar's images, are put to silence. So the 2 men in the beginning were put to silence, probably killed. Fare you well, there was more foolery yet, if I could remember it. Cassius says, will you sup with me tonight, Casca? And Casca says, no, I am promised forth. Cassius responds, will you dine with me tomorrow? And Casca says, aye, if I be alive, and your mind hold, and your dinner worth the eating. So, just a little banter, playful, sarcastic. And Cassius says, good, I will expect you. And Casca says, do so, farewell both. And Brutus says, what a blunt fellow is this grown to be. He was quick mettle when he went to school. Cassius says, so is he now in execution of any bold or noble enterprise. However, he puts on this tardy form. There's rudeness is a sauce to his good wit, which gives men's stomach to digest his words with better Brutus responds, "And so it is. For this time I leave with you. Tomorrow, if you please to speak with me, I will come home to you, or if you will, come home to me, and I will wait for you." Cassius says, one of the most important lines, "I will do so. Till then, think of the world." And that is when Brutus exits. And so by giving him that, Brutus is meant to sit with the thought that being against Julius Caesar might mean he is doing good for the rest of the world. And Cassius continues now that Brutus has left. "Well, Brutus, thou art noble, yet I see thy honorable metal may be wrought. From that it is disposed, therefore it is meet that noble minds keep ever with their likes, for who so firm that cannot be seduced? Caesar doth bear me hard, but he loves Brutus. If I were Brutus now, and he were Cassius, he should not humor me. I will this night in several hands in at his windows throw, as they came from several citizens, writings, all tending to the great opinion that Rome holds his name, wherein obscurely Caesar's ambition shall be glanced at. And after this let Caesar seat him sure, for we will shake him, or worse days endure." And that is the end of Act 1, Scene 2. And what Cassius finishes in his words is he is saying he has plotted to throw a false letter that is to be from the people of Rome into Brutus's window. And what that letter will describe is how they believe, from what I remember, that these citizens of Rome who wrote this letter, even though it's just Cassius forging it, these citizens don't believe that Caesar will be a good king, and they believe that Caesar will be a dangerous king. And so these letters are meant to convince Brutus that, oh, here I've gotten this sign, I've gotten this letter through my window telling me that Caesar is going to be a bad king. Oh, it's all making sense now, it's all piecing together. Cassius just warned me about this and talked to me about this, and suddenly I'm receiving letters. I need to do what's good for the people. And so it's all going to feed into Brutus's rationalization of accepting Cassius's idea that they must kill Julius Caesar. But I think I'm going to leave it there for now. I have taken this out quite far, but I really enjoyed this, but I've started yawning quite a bit extra. And I think my makeup is coming off from my glasses. It's okay. Please let me know if you would like to hear more from either Julius Caesar, to continue the scenes, or if you would like me to read another story. I read Hamlet last time, that is up on my channel, not the full Hamlet, so let me know if you would like to see more readings on this, or if you'd like me to read anything else that is in the public domain. I'd certainly be interested, but Shakespeare is definitely my little corner that I enjoy and that I have properly analyzed. So if you'd like more, I'd be so happy to do more. But please let me know anything else you'd like to see, or any comments that you do have on this. I love hearing what you guys have to say, especially if you enjoy Shakespeare as well, or